Good afternoon. Welcome to Business 360, your complete view of the stories driving business, markets, and the economy. I'm Apa Ongpin, and this is the Bilyonaryo News Channel. Bank lending hits its fastest growth in 7 months, with loans from big banks up more than 10% in March. First quarter profits of fast food giant Jollibee dropped 38%. Global oil prices jump after United States President Donald Trump claimed the U.S Iran ceasefire is on life support. No delay. After a leadership shakeup, new Senate President Cayetano says the chamber will act forthwith once the Duterte impeachment articles arrive. And DICT Secretary Henry Aguda denies resigning amid talks of another cabinet reshuffle. While the president is reportedly considering a UP professor to become the permanent budget secretary. Bank lending picked up as businesses and households kept borrowing in March. Big banks' loans grew 10.7% in March, the fastest pace in 7 months. Total loans hit 14.6 trillion pesos. Businesses borrowed more for real estate, power, trade, and transportation. Households also kept using credit, with consumer loans up 20.5%, led by credit cards. But households are now cutting back on spending. Fitch Unit BMI research now sees slower spending growth in the Philippines this year. For a consumer-driven economy, that's a risk. Chesulit has more.
Dati kasi, before inflation, namimili pa ako kung ano yung, may thinking tayo, may brand, mga yan. But now, yung generic na lang ang bili natin kasi ang layo ng difference no? Sometimes, 30%, 40% difference.
Married couple Aizel and Myron Gutierrez say that they have started to change their spending habits. And part of that is losing their brand consciousness when buying groceries. They realize that generic products still offer good quality at a lower cost. The pair also applied the same mindset to their family's transportation habits. Aizel and Myron now consolidate their errands and work meetings into a single day to save on diesel costs.
Dati, we nag-rotate tayo ng cars. So ngayon, nung nagmahal, isang car na lang ginagamit namin. Yung pinaka fuel efficient na lang. So sometimes nag-ask yung kids, ba't lagi ito ginagamit natin? So hindi to explain kasi ito pinakamatipid.
They also don't go to the mall as much as they used to.
Before, kumakain kami sa labas mostly. But now, since mahal na nga, iniiwasan namin maglalabas. So we eat here most of the time, and then kailangan namin explain sa kids yung adjustment kasi nagmo-mall kami palagi before. Sabi, iwasan muna namin maybe once a week na lang or once every 2 weeks na lang, ganon.
BMI Research, a unit of Fitch Solutions, has lowered the household spending growth forecast for the Philippines to 4.4%. It earlier projected a 4.5% household spending growth for 2026. The research group attributes this to higher fuel costs and weak consumer confidence amid the Middle East conflict. The Philippine Statistics Authority reported that household spending dipped in the first quarter of 2026 at 3%, the lowest since the first quarter of 2021 during the COVID-19 pandemic. The PSA said that household spending makes up 70% of the country's GDP growth, which has also slipped to 2.8% in Q1 of 2026. Aizel and Myron say they are optimistic that the country's economic standing will still improve. But for now, they are cutting costs and using simple budgeting tools like credit card statements to monitor their spending. Their advice to fellow parents: plan ahead and cut back on non-essential spending. But amid the tight budget, remember to take care of your family's health and well-being. For Business 360, Chesulit, Bilyonaryo News Channel.
The economy is sending mixed signals. Bank lending is growing, but foreign investment and market confidence remain under pressure. Christina Ulang, research head of First Metro Investment, joins us for the market read. Good afternoon, Christina.
Hi, good afternoon, Apa. Nice to be here.
Thanks for joining us. Bank lending grew 10.7% in March. Is this a sign the economy still has momentum, or are borrowers relying more on credit in a tougher environment?
Well, this growth is very much driven by consumer lending, and the banks are really geared towards broadening the consumer lending portion of the total loan portfolio, because that is really what's going to improve their net interest margin, given this backdrop of falling interest rates early in the year, because the communication from the BSP was that they're going to cut. This is prior to the war and prior to the inflation. And so the banks were very much aggressive in pushing auto loans, mortgage loans. So we observed that based on the presentation of the banks for their first quarter earnings, they were really amazed at the double-digit, high teens, like 19%, 20% growth in terms of consumer lending. And following that would be this the usual capital expenditures of the funding for the capex of the corporation. So it's really at the beginning of the year is still a very bullish beginning for the business, and the banks were really gaining and benefiting from it. So the economy beginning of the year in terms of expectation like a very upbeat, but unfortunately we have this war, and then the outlook would really shift. Banks are now becoming a bit more worried because the operating environment is becoming more difficult given high inflation shock of 7.2% last month, and then of course higher interest rates. We have now seen the 5-year in the bond auction today shoot up to like 7.1, 7.2%. We were just at 6% for the 5-year bond last year, and that was at the low point. So it's really a tight liquidity environment, high credit costs going into the second quarter and later. But beginning of the year, it was really, really very, very upbeat.
Yeah, well, the BSP has no choice but to scrub liquidity if it wants to try to control inflation.
Yes.
Business lending has also picked up. Does that tell you that companies are still expanding, or are they simply financing higher operating costs?
Well, we have certain sectors in the economy that are really upbeat, such as this renewable energy transition, wholesale and retail trade, manufacturing is still upbeat. We have the semiconductors and electronics, all exports benefiting from this AI expansion in the developed world. And these are the ones that are very much in need of credit. And I think there's going to be a lot of demand for them. But in as far as the property is concerned, we've heard that Ayala Land and SM Prime, both leading developers in the country, property developers of high-rise condominiums, they have scaled back their capital expenditure budgets actually by 20 billion for Ayala Land, and then 30 billion for SM, the mall operator. So they're a bit in the mode of like capital conservation and balance sheet, building up the balance sheet buffer. So I think that's going to be there's going to be a difference with regard to certain industries, because there are upbeat industries like food and all of those branded essentials, and all of those going into food retailing, food service, and like we've heard, Pure Gold is still expanding. All of these distributors of spirits and wines also very much upbeat in terms of their expansion, and even the banking industry in terms of the branches and all of this digital infrastructure build up. In the second half, we're expecting actually an infrastructure ramp up to be driven by the government, and so towards year end, I think there's going to be a lot more demand for funding second half of the year.
Yeah, the government has announced a lot of build-out, but if local credit is still growing while foreign direct investment is falling, does that mean that the domestic money is the one carrying the economy while FDI or foreign investors remain cautious?
Yeah, of course, we have this, unfortunately, we have this governance issue with respect to last year's flood control scandal, and we are just emerging from that. We have to regain the confidence of foreign investors, and this is what really the BSP is monitoring. It's the restoration of foreign confidence. But unless we have a credible resolution of all of these lawsuits, all of these ombudsman filings with regard to the anomalies last year, if we have a credible resolution, then we would appear really as as a government that is really trying to rebuild the institution, the credibility of the institution. And that's going to be very good in as far as attracting foreign investments. But that's not only the factor to consider. We have to really build out our, proceed really with our infrastructure ramp up, because we have to have world-class infrastructure, not only physical, but also digital, soft side of it, which is very much supported by the reform of the government, Diskonektadong Pinoy, and the support coming also from the IFC in terms of data center development. I think there's also confidence with regard to the multilateral, like the IFC, which is an arm, the investing arm of the World Bank. And of course, the ADB saying that the Philippines has got the most comprehensive response to the energy crisis. And they are predicting that our GDP growth this year is going to be like 4.7%. IMF is predicting next year we will have recovery 5.7%. And Apa, if you're going to look at the BOI approved investments, first 2 months, it's actually 300% increase. And last year, we hit a record of 1.5 trillion. But of course, these BOI approved investments is a combination of foreign and local. And the foreign is the one that is small, but the local is big. It's so big that you would really see that the local players, our conglomerates, the big companies that we have here, are very confident about the economy.
Yeah, well, FDI supposedly fell 31% in February.
Yeah.
Are we, is foreign capital still staying away?
Yes, because this FDI is comprised by your portfolio investments, which in the first 2 months is down by 22%.
Yeah.
You've seen how the PISA has performed. We were at the 6,006 level, the PISA at 6,600 level on February 28 when the war started. We are now at where? 5,900, really a tad below 6,000. So we are the worst performing market in Asia, negative like 10%. And our currency is also at the bottom, negative 6%, all because of the war. In reference to the beginning of the war, we were at 57 pesos, 57.50 beginning of the war. And so I think this is the resolution of this war is going to be very helpful to improve the sentiment of the market.
Yeah.
For our, and of course the hard part of it, the equity capital is also lower. And then the reinvestment earnings part of it is also lower. And also the debt instruments, which is another segment of the FDI, is also down 35%. So we were hit by, across the board, we were hit like in the first two. But this is just the first round. It's not the end of the, it's not the end of the boxing. This is just the first 2 months of the year. We have the rest. Second half of the year, and I think I'm very bullish about the second half, because eventually government's fiscal stimulus is going to kick in. It's not kicking in now because the budget was passed on a delayed. It was delayed, like signed just January, and so the disbursements are not yet coming through. But in the second half, I think there's going to be a lot of stimulus coming through to achieve and to recover. The entire economy really should recover in the second half.
Are governance and execution risks becoming harder to separate from the Philippine investment story, especially after controversies like the flood control scandal?
Well, unfortunately, governance is one of the criteria that foreign direct investments are looking into before they invest. That's really one. It has really made a lot of wonders when it comes to the stock market of Taiwan and South Korea. Corporate governance was the key reason why their stock markets are the best performing now in Asia. And it's not even about government, it's about corporate. So this is really a big thing, this governance. But aside from that, we also need to have policy certainty. We need to have policy consistency. We have to have ease of doing business. Like our customs clearance here is about like 11 days. In Thailand, it's just 5 days. We have to also have the digital infrastructure. the speed of the internet, the reliability of the internet, but government has put up reforms. That's the good thing about this government. Actually, we have liberalized renewable energy, 100% foreign ownership, and there's a lot of interest, a lot of investment in renewable energy. We have Aboitiz Meralco forming these chromite holdings, investing in natural gas, and of course the IFC, I have said, and the telcos are investing in data centers. Our wholesale and retail trade is growing. It's a very resilient part of the economy. Manufacturing, electronics, digital infrastructure, smart agriculture is going to be the next big thing. AI eventually, by way of Konektadong Pinoy. And this Luzon corridor, the Luzon corridor is is one of the targets of the many countries to put up a sort of a industrial complex, sort of a military industrial complex to be set up by the U.S. It's gonna really produce this manufacturing hub for several support industries for the U.S. Expansion in Southeast Asia and in Asia as a whole because of the geopolitical rebalancing that is happening now. So very bright prospects for the Philippines, but we just need to correct our governance and improve the credibility of our institutions.
Yeah, the Luzon Economic Corridor was already, approved and everything, and then suddenly Trump removed USAID, so that's caused a big delay. How does weaker foreign direct investment feed into the equity market?
Of course, the equity market, we've seen the PISA, I have said, it's really languishing between 5,900, 6,000, and there is really less foreign buying. The foreign buying is very sporadic, and it is unable to give the PISA some legs. There is no trace of sustainability, although we are the cheapest in Asia now with a PE of 9 times. And yet, the economy, the equities market fails to attract, mainly because we are seeing all these shortcomings when it comes to governance, and we are now seeing some changes in the political scene. There are predictions that maybe there is just a lot of political uncertainty also, which is another layer of uncertainty on top of the geopolitical events that are happening abroad, and how those events outside are affecting our inflation, our current account deficit. Really, the deficit is the big thing, which is already affecting our currency 6150, mainly because of the oil import bill, which is predicted to be like 20 billion US dollar, 22, conservatively 22 billion US dollars for the year if this Middle East war gets prolonged. And the reference point is really the Ukraine war, when we saw our oil import bill shot up to like 22 billion US dollars. And the BSP has predicted that the balance of payments as a result would be like climbing to a negative of 7.8 billion US dollars this year. They have revised the original forecast of negative 5.8. So this is what's really hanging on the currency right now. This is a dead weight on the currency and has very negative spillover effects on the equities market. The sentiment is really negative now.
Yeah, just going back briefly to the Luzon Economic Corridor, that's a long-term thing, right?
Yes.
Are we likely to see any benefits from that within, for instance, the term of the president?
Well, this, I think it's going to be driven really by the need of the U.S. government and the U.S. in its repositioning in Asia. If China has such one belt, one road, which is really an economic cooperation, this Luzon corridor, I think, is a bid and an attempt on the U.S. government to really expand its influence in Asia. And it is fortunate that we are turning or becoming a sort of a springboard for the U.S. to really expand its presence here. And given this crisis, this conflict with Taiwan, the tension with Taiwan, all the more that the U.S. needs a place where it can really have supportive industries for its expansion in Asia in terms of economic cooperation, strategic military agreements. So I think it is high time because this is really a multipolar world, and I think this is really gonna get moving. Slowly maybe, but all the signs are pointing to the inevitability of the U.S. putting up all of the needed infrastructures for it to really project power in Asia.
Well, thank you very much, Christina Ulang, Head of Research of First Metro Investment.
Sure, thank you.
More stories when we return. Business 360. We'll be right back. Welcome back to Business 360. I'm Apa Ongpin. On life support is how U.S. President Donald Trump described the U.S. Iran ceasefire, putting global oil prices under pressure. The benchmark Brent crude was up 3% to $104 a barrel. This comes after he rejected Tehran's response to a U.S. peace proposal, which had kept investors hopeful.
It's unbelievably weak, I would say. I would call it the weakest right now. After reading that piece of garbage they sent us, I didn't even finish reading it. They said, I'm not going to waste my time reading it. I would say it's one of the weakest right now. It's on life support. They understand. These are all medical people. Dr. Oz, life support is not a good thing. Do you agree?
Diagnostic.
I would say the ceasefire is on massive life support, where the doctor walks in and says, sir, your loved one has approximately a 1% chance of living.
The U.S. also imposed new sanctions targeting Iranian oil shipments to China. Local stocks traded lower as geopolitical tensions kept investors cautious. The Philippine Stock Exchange Index dropped back to the 5,900 level. The day's most active stocks were mixed. BDO than 1% after leading asset growth among top private banks. Jollibee Foods Corporation fell more than 10%. Jollibee profits dropped sharply in the first quarter, even as sales continue to grow. Their net income fell nearly 39% to 1.5 billion pesos. The fast food giant says higher commodity costs and global volatility squeezed their margins. That's despite an increase of more than 10% in system-wide sales. Jollibee says it will implement measured price increases in the second quarter to protect profitability. Globe Telecom posts higher service revenues in the first quarter. Gross service revenues rose 5% to 42 billion pesos. But Globe says this was still below its record fourth quarter level as the company continues to face a challenging macroeconomic environment. ASEN reports higher first quarter profit, but one-time gains did much of the lifting. The Ayala Group's energy platform posted 2.9 billion pesos in net income. That's up 50% from last year, but without one-off items, core profit was lower. The bright spot was output. ASEN's renewable energy generation grew 32%, helped by Australia, Laos, and the return of wind operations in Ilocos Norte. Most Asian shares fall, causing a rally in AI stocks as markets track the latest geopolitical tensions. South Korea's Kospi fell the most at nearly 2%. It earlier approached 8,000 points, then recoiled, pulling down other regional markets. Markets are keeping a watchful eye on Trump's visit to China tomorrow. Expectations are low, both on the trade front and with Iran. Wall Street has been mostly resilient despite Trump's statement on the ceasefire. The S&P 500 and Nasdaq hit record highs again, boosted by tech stocks. But markets are watching out for the upcoming release of U.S. inflation data. Any hint of a possible rate hike from the Federal Reserve could rattle markets. We're taking a quick break. Business 360 will be right back. Welcome back to Business 360. I'm Apa Ongpin. Senate President Peter Cayetano says there will be no delay in acting on the impeachment case against Vice President Sara Duterte. Cayetano says the Senate will move forthwith once it formally receives the articles of impeachment. His statement comes after a Senate leadership shakeup raised questions over whether the process could slow down. Cayetano says the upper chamber will give the case full attention, but will also have to deal with economic issues facing the country. Senator Bato de la Rosa remains inside the Senate complex as his camp exhausts all legal remedies over an ICC warrant. We have Hannah T. on the line for more details. Hannah, what's the latest over there at the Senate?
Hi, Apa. Senator Bato de la Rosa says he's now at the lowest point of his life as he faced the Senate publicly yesterday for the first time following the release of the ICC warrant against him. After yesterday's dramatic tension inside the Senate, de la Rosa appeared today at the Senate plenary as part of the new majority bloc. De la Rosa said the experiences he went through over the past few months have humanized him following his 6-month absence from the Senate. The senator admitted he never expected that after years of service as a police officer and public official, this would be how his career would turn out. When asked where he had been hiding, De La Rosa responded Luzon, Visayas, and Mindanao, insisting he never left the country and would live and die in the Philippines. He also denied personally ordering authorities to kill during the drug war, claiming that everything happened to him now is politically motivated. Yesterday, Apa former Senator Sonny Trillanes appeared at the Senate after De La Rosa earlier challenged him to show up once the warrant was served. De La Rosa then accused different groups, including Trillanes, leftist groups, and former House Speaker Martin Romualdez, of allegedly coordinating to bring down the Dutertes. The ICC earlier identified De La Rosa as one of the alleged co-perpetrators of former President Rodrigo Duterte in the so-called common plan linked to killings during the war on drugs. For now, De La Rosa remains inside the Senate complex while his camp exhausts all legal remedies. His lawyer, attorney Israelito Torion, also claimed they received information that an aircraft had been on standby since the ICC warrant surfaced, though authorities have yet to confirm this. Meanwhile, APA Senate President Peter Cayetano said that if a local court order is eventually issued against De La Rosa, he himself would talk to the senator about facing it. Back to you.
Thank you, Hannah T. Reporting from the Senate. The Trump administration is asking a U.S. court to keep its global tariffs in place while it appeals a ruling that found them unlawful. The case covers Trump's 10% global tariffs. A U.S. trade court ruled that the tariffs were invalid under Section 122 of the 1974 Trade Act. But the Justice Department is warning the ruling could open the door to claims from thousands of importers. If the court pauses the rulings, importers would keep paying the levies while the legal battle continues. Two U.S. lawmakers are moving to keep Chinese automakers out of the American market. The bill would toughen restrictions on Chinese-made and Chinese-designed vehicles, especially cars with advanced connectivity and software. Lawmakers cite supposed national security concerns, including the risk of vehicles collecting sensitive data. For its part, China is urging the U.S. to stop what it calls discriminatory measures and to provide a fair business environment. We're taking a quick break. Stay with Business 360. Welcome back to Business 360. I'm Apa Ongpin. Department of Information and Communications Technology Secretary Henry Aguda denied reports that he resigned. The denial comes amid talks of a possible cabinet reshuffle. The one-year ban on the appointment of officials who lost in the 2025 midterm elections ended on Tuesday. Sources earlier told BNC that Aguda had submitted a resignation letter to the palace on Monday. The DICT chief has faced controversy since his appointment in March 2025, including allegations of bid rigging. President Ferdinand Marcos Jr. reportedly appointed a professor at the University of the Philippines to head the Department of Budget and Management. A palace insider told Bilyonaryo News Channel Marcos has signed the appointment of Kim Robert De Leon. He teaches public governance at the State University. De Leon previously served as a DBM undersecretary. He replaces acting Budget Secretary Rolando Toledo. GT Capital is giving Ateneo a new home south of Metro Manila. The T-led holding company is donating a 15-hectare property in General Trias, Cavite to Ateneo, inside the River Park Township. The campus is expected to serve students from Cavite, southern Metro Manila, and nearby provinces. The donation follows an agreement signed in October last year. And that's Business 360. We'll keep tracking the moves that matter across markets, policy, and the economy. I'm Apa Ongpin. Thank you for joining us. Keep it here on BNC, the Bilyonaryo News Channel.